next presentation will be Dr. Jenny Hall, box set editor of MATFLIX. She's also a very creative academic, I would say. She's been creative all her nursing and midwifery career, both in practice, publication, and in education. And she's very focused on reflective practice at the moment. Her passion is to view women's needs holistically, and she's edited The Practicing Midwife, and she's published very widely. She's also a fellow of the Royal College of Midwives and senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy. And she's going to introduce us to the idea of being your best midwife. So the screen is yours, Jenny. Welcome.
Thank you very much for that introduction. It's very long, isn't it?
Sorry.
No, it's just makes me realise how old I am, or something like that. I'm just going to try and share my screen. Just to say, the aim of this is really to think about professional, personal development, as Jackie's just been talking about, and how we can use MATFLIX, the Maternity Forum material, in order to actually help your professional development. So in the next slide, these are the current rules that we have for revalidation. If you can move it across, Catherine, for me, thank you. In the UK, and if you are watching from other countries, as I've already previously said, that your rules might be quite different for you. You might not have any rules at all, and that you might want to think about how you are going to keep up to date and professionally as a midwife going forward. So what we have to do is 450 hours of practice over 3 years. We have to show evidence of 35 hours of CPD, which at least 20 must be participatory. And you also have to submit your learning to the Nursing Council, but I also added on there that you have to do reflective accounts and reflective and confirmation discussion as well. So on the next slide is to think about actually how you're going to also record the CPD that you have undertaken. So, for example, that you're here today, you've been part of this conference today, remember to write it down, what you have done, and remember to keep recording all those things that you've participated in. And that could also be the midwifery hours that you've been part of as well over the past few months. Make sure that you write those down, that you have been part of those, and they are part of your hours of personal development that you have done. And you've got to think about the fact that this is participatory today, even though it's online, as is the midwifery hour. And you can include these as being participatory because you are actually part of a large conference that is actually being put online instead. So just going on to the next slide, please. So in thinking about the events today, as it says on the left there, it's participatory learning is very much attending festivals. It is actually sort of attending perhaps your own personal development that you have within your trusts, as those can actually be included. Think about what you have been learning and think about how it's going to impact on your practice. And this is part of the process of beginning to reflect. Make sure that you jot those feelings down, because when you come to it in 3 years' time, when you suddenly decide that you're going to submit to the NMC, it's really helpful to have these aid memoirs that you have already there. The second part there is around your own personal learning. Well, for some of you, you might be undertaking something like a master's course or a PhD course, or something that is an extra course that can be recognised as participatory personal learning, not participatory, sorry. But what we have created here is the MATFLIX box sets, which I'll talk to you about. If we can just go on to the next slide, explain what that is. And for the past year, I've had the utter privilege of being able to look back at all the videos and the talks and listened to, not quite all of them because there's 900 of them, but gone back to look over some of the talks that have been made and to create from them educational packages, which you can then use for your revalidation. So in each of the box sets, there are between 5 and 6 videos. And included with that are also the biographies of each person who's actually done the talk, so that you know you can follow them up if you want to. But there are also links to related research or professional documents or policy documents that are appropriate to those particular topics that are there. And in addition, I have created reflective questions for you to undertake for each of the packages, which are again appropriate and link into your NMC revalidation in the future. You go on to the next slide, please, Catherine. Actually, could you just go back one? Sorry, I apologise. It's difficult doing this. Okay, so if you go back to the previous slide, it also says that you do need to evidence your learning. And so you've got to remember to write everything down, as I've said, but the reflective questions are linked and aligned to the NMC requirements, and you can expand your reflections for the NMC submission in the future if you just remember to write it down. So if we go on to the next one, it just tells you I just realized we've got a different slides here to the ones that I have. Okay. So if you can just thank you. Let's go on to the next one. Thank you. So the usual costs are here. You can buy them individually, but you can also have subscriptions. You can join up with a subscription, which is a monthly amount. And you go on to the next slide, it actually tells you that for today, if you're attending these conferences, that you also get a special rate, which is, I believe, $5.99 a month, which is not very much at all. It's only a couple of coffees. So think about how you can use that for yourself. So each month there are new ones that are going to be coming out, still working on them. And though all of them are applicable to midwives, there are some as well which are applicable specifically for different roles, for example, in management or in education, and some are relevant as well, perhaps to the wider MTD teams, such as ones on screening, for example, on stillbirth. And so you've got to think about, and also for potential students, if you're thinking about for the future as well. And these will be updated, or they're planning to be yearly, as new material comes out and new information comes out. But it's also important to think about that actually these can also be used as an educational resource. You can use these if you're going to flip your classroom, for example, that you can use these to provide to your students and then bring them back in to have debate and discussion following them. They could also be used in practice education situations that you can think about how, as a team, if you want something within the trust, that you can use these to support your practice education for the whole team, for example, around labour, particular aspects of labour. So there are different resources there for everybody that they can use. And for those who are actually within universities, you can talk to your libraries in order to get these as a teaching resource of 400 at least videos that you can access and to get a license to use for education purposes. So do talk to us after this session about how you can do that. MATFLIX is very much on social media. I'm on social media a lot, as many people know. We're on Twitter and Facebook and on Instagram. So do connect up and to keep up to date with new material as it comes out. And thank you very much for listening. And of course, you can ask me questions now and any time in the future about how things are developing in the future. So thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you, Jenny.